G'day Internet. Do I ever have an update / story for you guys? And it's not exactly a positive one. So last video I was talking about the oil pressure being low and I was hoping that the gauge was just on the fritz. Well, I installed a proper oil pressure gauge and it was not nearly as incorrect as I hoped it was going to be. So I installed that in there and I'll insert the clip from when it was running. At hot, the pressure is like straight up 5 psi, like halfway up to the 1 mark. So basically no oil pressure. So right after I realized that we had low oil pressure for real, I decided to park the car because, you know, low oil pressure is bad. I wanted to figure that out before something bad happened. So I parked the car and I removed the front cover. You can do that. It's a huge pain in the butt. You have to undo some RTV sealant on the bottom and on the front of the engine. But I did that, and that gives you access to a bunch of stuff related to the oil system. So you can inspect and remove the oil pump, the pickup tube, and the strainer that's on the bottom of it. You can inspect the O-ring that goes between the front cover and the front iron, which is where the pump lives. And that is one of the first things that people recommend to check when you have low oil pressure problems with one of these, because it's really easy for that O-ring to get compromised, and it is one of the first links in the system. So if it goes bad, you have no pressure all over the place. So I was really hoping it was that. So I took the front cover off. Wasn't that at all. My pickup tube is completely fine. You can also check out the front regulator. It's really a relief valve in the front. There's a relief valve in the front and the rear, and sometimes people call them regulators, but really they are... The front one is a relief valve at like 100 psi. The rear one is one that is supposed to crack when it's actually under normal use. So mine is like 70 psi is what the stock GSLSE one is. Or I know the 12A is 70, but I digress. I'm not sure. So I checked that front regulator relief valve thing and the rear one. Both of them were working totally fine. So I took a look at the oil pump. And the oil pump, is this open right now? It'll probably be worth it for me to actually show you the pump so you can visualize what I'm saying. So here's the pump that was on the car. So I measured, one of the specs on this is the difference in height between this surface, sorry about the focus, the difference in height between that and that. So I'll insert a picture. I used a feeler gauge, and this thing is way out of spec. Maximum allowed is 6 thou, and this one was like 17. So this thing is really worn. So let's keep that in mind. People online, when I was asking about this, agreed that a pump that's worn will not cause you to have 5 psi of oil pressure. It will not ruin your pressure that much, but it could be a clue as to what happened here. So I got in touch with a guy on Facebook that was very kind, and he is shipping me 2 of these oil pumps because he just had no use for them. One of them, he says, is like super mint. The other one is meh, and it was like 150 bucks shipped. So that's incredible. These, if you get them from like Mazda Tricks, are incredibly expensive, so that's awesome. Don't think this caused the pressure to be that low, but just remember that this was not 100%. So after looking at all that, I really didn't feel like replacing the pump was actually going to fix the entire problem. Like, it might make up a 5% difference, it being worn, but I don't think it's going to cause it to fall flat on its face like that. So I was kind of in the dumps about it, honestly, because I had no idea how to fix this problem, and I felt like if I continued to drive the car, it was going to blow up. So there's one other thing that can cause, well, there's a million things that can cause low oil pressure, but the last one on the list is bearing clearance. Where the oil pressure ultimately comes from is by getting shot between the eccentric shaft and the bearings that it is inside of. It gets shot through there, and that resistance to flow is what creates the pressure. So with the front cover off of the car, the eccentric shaft is sticking out of it, and this is not the proper way to measure clearance, but I measured how much up and down play it had, and the spec for bearing clearance is 3 thou, and mine was moving 12. So I then had reason to dig in a little bit more, so I took the front stationary gear off of it, and I did not enjoy what I found. So here's what we found. It spun the front bearing, I think, just recently. So I don't think it's been spun for very long, but sure enough, the tab was folded in. When I removed the front stat gear, this did not come with it. That is not supposed to happen. This thing was stuck on the eccentric shaft, and there's so many grooves in it, so it destroyed the eccentric shaft. So because it destroyed the eccentric shaft, like, I'm never going to be able to make proper oil pressure using that ever again. As soon as I saw that we had a damaged front bearing and that the E-shaft had to get replaced, I immediately went into engine disassembly mode, and we tore the engine out of it. So all of this is pretty negative and it sucks, but on the bright side, it was a bliss to remove from the car. I did it in 5 hours. From the time that it was in the car, I mean, it had the front cover off of it, it was sort of disassembled, but all the wiring and stuff was on it, the distributor was on it. The distributor still has everything plugged into it still. I was just able to pretty much take it out and set it here. So that was incredibly easy. I had to take my the sniper off and the intake manifold off. That's chilling in the back right now. Only a couple of wires that go to that thing. Just incredibly easy. The pain in the butt is removing the oil and the coolant from the system. That's the part that sucks the most. But anyway, it was really easy to remove. So I removed it, and we destacked it, and let me tell you what is damaged in it. So I was terrified, absolutely terrified, that because this was damaged and the clearance was extra large, the effect of that is that this, when it's spinning, is going to be doing this. It's going to be doing an oval. It's going to be doing a dance that it's not supposed to be doing in the engine. And now the rotors are doing this more than they're supposed to. And everything is doing that more than it's supposed to. So, reminder that I did not park this car because the engine blew up. I parked this car because I was worried about the oil pressure and I wanted to fix it before driving it more. But in reality, the car had just started to fail, and I got really lucky that I decided to inspect it. Not as lucky as if I had, decided to park it earlier, but we did not destroy any of our crucial engine components. Rotors are fine, housings are fine, irons are fine. Thank God. So as soon as I realized that we had, like, an engine catastrophe on our hands, I had to take it apart, and I had to know how much I was in the hole for replacement parts. Because if the rotors had wobbled enough to crash into the irons, I pretty much would be replacing everything, and it would be probably $4,000 to $5,000. So I think we're in the hole for about $1,000. So let me go over what we need to replace. I'm going to put all new bearings in it, including, we just put new rotor bearings in it when I built the engine, but those are not looking that great now that there's been a bearing failure, and they've been wobbling around the ways they're not supposed to, and there's been little bits of crap in the oil. Most of this crap would have gone back into the sump directly, and then it wouldn't make its way back through the system, but there was definitely some crap that made its way to the other journals. Do you want to see the oil pan? It's not good. You ready? Oh no. Oh no. So, that is all front bearing. Also, as soon as I saw that, I freaked out because I was like, that better not be my housings or my irons. And it was not. It was just the front bearing and the front eccentric shaft riding surface exploding. So, I need a new eccentric shaft. And I also want to replace this because it overheated and it also spun inside of it. Could I use it and have it be totally fine? Probably. But I don't feel comfortable doing that because I'm the one that has to take the engine out if this ever fails, or if it allows a bearing to spin in it extra easy this time because it's already happened before. Maybe the heat expanded it or warped it a little bit. So I got in contact with a guy on Facebook that is selling me a new used eccentric shaft from a GSL SE. I was thinking about maybe trying to use like an RX7 E shaft, but there's a whole bunch of pain in the butt things you have to do. So I just wanted a new GSL SE E shaft, but they're a little bit more rare. And I found a guy in Canada that had one from an engine teardown that he had. He had no use for it, and he sold it to me for $100. Thank you so much, Eric. You are a beauty. He also is sending me his stat gears. So my rear stat gear is totally fine. That bearing didn't spin, but I'm going to use the front one from him. And again, everything's going to get brand new bearings, and we're going to get a used eccentric shaft. And we're actually going to measure the bearing clearance this time, and hopefully we'll get the result that we were after the first time, which is a rotary engine that is reliable and will last a long, healthy life, not just 3,000 kilometers. So what's damaged? Bearing, front stat gear, eccentric shaft is dead. What else? Alright, so here's my engine. You like it? So there are housings. There's the rear iron, the center iron, and the front iron is still on the engine stand in there. And thank God everything is okay. Everything looks to be wearing the way that I would expect. It's kind of neat that I get to check out how everything is wearing, because I'm the one that prepared and assembled all this stuff. So it's cool to kind of get a checkpoint at 3,000 kilometers, but I was hoping to not have to take it apart this soon, you know what I'm saying? So, what else is damaged? Not that. Thank the Lord. But this sucks, okay? So, oil control rings. I got a brand new set of every type of seal for this engine. There's not a single thing that was original except for those bearings. That's not a seal, though. So, here are my oil control rings that were on the rotors that were in the engine. And they are very worn. So this is rotor number 1. This is the one that was closest to the weeble wobbling. And then this one was further from the weeble wobbling. The silver part is how much is worn. So let's contrast that to an oil control ring that I took from the engine that had 255,000 kilometers. Look how big the silver part is. Even an engine that ran way longer than any rotary ever should, it still only wore that tiny little bit. And the spec for Mazda for wear, I think, is 20 thou, which is about half a millimeter. So, like, this is probably still in spec. It's rusty, and I can't use it because it's kind of rusty junk, and I wouldn't feel comfortable putting it in there, but that part is at least not worn. And then look at ours. And these were brand new, which really breaks my heart. Really, it breaks my wallet. Do you know how expensive oil control rings are? If you're an engine builder, you know. These, for me to obtain, so I need a full new set. Could I try and run these? Yeah, but again, I'm trying to put together a really good rotary engine that works for a long time that I don't have to take apart. So I'm not putting anything that's compromised in it, which is making it expensive. Right, Felix? Right, dude? Right, dude? Yeah, Felix is pissed about all this. Can't believe it. So, could I try and use these? Would they maybe be fine-ish? Yeah, but I need new oil control rings. I looked at all of these and I thought, can I use these? They are that expensive. So, full set of oil control rings that I just bought less than 6 months ago, Canadian, $650 for 8 of these little metal ring things. So it was $116 per set of 2, US, times 4 for the entire engine, and then apply exchange rate, and it's basically $1 bajillion. So the way I'm trying to look at it is I'm counting my blessings that we didn't destroy our housings, because this would have been $1,000 if we destroyed that. That would have been $1,000 if we destroyed that. This is only $650, and we are talking about repairing a damaged rotary engine, so it's not cheap territory. But oh my God, that hurts. That hurts. I just bought new oil control rings so that this thing could be awesome. And my oil control rings got absolutely toasted because the front bearing failed. So that, honestly, is the worst part about it to me. But I am at least a little bit happy that we are on the road to fixing the oil pressure problem. I didn't want it to have to happen like this, but it is what it is. Yeah, so we got a mint oil pump on the way. This looks like it's got a lot of step wear, but it doesn't. That is exactly what I would expect for a rotary engine with just a little bit of love on it, a little bit of use on it. You can still see where it kind of looks like that. That's not rust. This thing is all oiled up. That is the lapped surface. So this is the lapped surface that holds oil extra nice and good. And there's still a little bit of it on where the oil control rings actually do their dance. So they probably did a little bit of extra wearing, but it's weird how irons look whenever they start to get a bit of wear. It looks like that could be in like 5 millimeters, but trust me, it is not. This plate is totally fine. I'm happy with it. So here's our strainer. Strainer was totally fine. I don't know why I'm showing you this. It's where the oil pump goes. That fabled O-ring that fails on everybody, it goes right there. So I've actually ordered some RX7 parts to help put this all back together. I've got a front cover from an RX7, which is actually a metal gasket compared to a paper gasket. Although you have to cut some stuff off of it to use it with one of these engines. I also had to, so from the Mazda dealer, getting a front cover gasket. I'm also getting the rear tension bolt washers, because you need those anytime you take one of these apart. Like taking the engine apart, it's not just the cost of the parts that I got to replace. It's, you got to buy a couple of new seals. We're definitely reusing most of the seals, like apex seals, side seals, all that stuff doesn't need to be touched. All that stuff is fine. But oil control rings are toast, unfortunately, and they are an extremely expensive seal, almost expensive as apex seals. So anyway, got that stuff coming from Mazda. Got a new E-shaft coming from a guy in Quebec. New stat gear also coming from that guy in Quebec. Got a new oil pump coming for it, so that we have an A+ oil pump when this all goes back together. And from RX7 Specialties in Calgary, I have ordered the new set of oil control rings and 4 new bearings to put all new bearings in the engine, and a new pilot seal, and I think that was it. So yeah, this is the oh shit video. Hopefully the next vid is the putting the engine back together video, and then hopefully after that one, or maybe even that one, is the holy crap, we fixed the oil pressure and oil consumption problem, because if you remember, this thing consumed a little bit more oil than I liked. Well, looking at those oil control rings, it now kind of makes sense. It was because the rotors were doing a weeble wobble, so that was probably angling the oil control rings against the surface more than they're supposed to be, and then they wore like that. So that's scary. But I'm really glad that I caught it before the rotors contacted the side or the top, because that would have broken my heart, because those are the components of the engine that are $1,000 a pop. But all the stuff that I just talked about, especially because I got a great deal on the E-shaft and a great deal on the pump, we're in the hole for about $1,000. That's not the end of the world. I can live with that. It's just, I want to be driving this right now, man. It's July. This car is down. My poor Speed 3 is down. The only thing that I'm driving is the Speed 6. This thing sucks, man. This thing has the low oil pressure light on too. And whenever this thing goes, I might have to friggin' lease something. Do you know how stupid I'm gonna feel if I have to lease a vehicle while having 5 of them in my yard? Oh man. Anyway, we're gonna get this thing back up on the road soon. I paid for faster shipping from everywhere that I could. So we have a bunch of stuff showing up this Friday, and I imagine the eccentric shaft is going to show up probably mid next week. So hopefully this is just an event that I will look back on and go, oh yeah, that was a thing, not a big deal. But yeah, this is an important part of the engine saga. We had to take it apart after 3,000 kilometers because the front bearing failed. So, nobody said that engine building wasn't cold and unforgiving if you don't know what you're doing. And this is the first engine I've ever built in my life, so could have gone worse. Definitely could have gone worse. I'm glad that I eventually paid attention to the oil pressure, and you bet your goddamn ass I'm going to pay attention to the oil pressure whenever we get this thing going again. So I think that's pretty much it. It's pretty much all that I got for you. I'll see you in the next one whenever we fix this bad boy. Thanks for watching.